from Force 13 HQ and from our contributors from around the world. This is August 31st, 2018. Hello and welcome to Tropical Weather Bulletin for August the 31st. It's a busy time that we're entering, and it is usually the busiest time of the year. Climatologically speaking, there's 3 cyclones and 3 invests active, and out of those particular cyclones, they are quite something to behold right now. First of all, let's look at the Eastern Pacific Ocean. This is how the East Pac's looking right now. Miriam just entered the Central Pacific in the last... That was around 24 hours ago now, but it's still not too far away from the boundary line. It's not going to affect the Hawaiian Islands, you'll be pleased to know. Although it could get a little bit stronger in the next 6 to 12 hours and maybe reach 90 miles per hour. Norman over there on the right hand side is at around 150 mile an hour winds and could get to 155 or maybe pushing the boundary just into category 5 territory. That remains to be seen. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. And Invest 91E down towards the southeast there, that has an 80% chance of formation and will more likely than not become our next storm in the Eastern Pacific. And that could gain some intensity as well, so it's not letting up in this basin. The Atlantic is also waking up. Potential tropical cyclone 6L. A 90% chance of formation on this storm in the next 48 hours and in the next 5 days, and is expected to become a hurricane in the next 3 to 5 days after passing through the Cape Verde Islands, in which there are tropical storm warnings for the southernmost of those islands, I believe, if not all of them. I'm not entirely sure on that actually, but suffice to say, on all of those islands there could be gusty winds and very heavy rainfall. 10% chance on that other system further to the west, affecting Hispaniola and other islands in the Caribbean there. Could develop, very low chance at the minute, 10%, but we'll be watching that one as it enters the northeastern Gulf of Mexico. The ECMWF last week was talking about developing that system into a storm, but all models appear to have backed off that one for the time being. We'll wait and see. North Indian's quiet. West Pacific has Typhoon Jebi, which has astounded observers in the last 12 to 24 hours, intensifying from category 1 to category 5 since our last update, since the last tropical weather bulletin, that is. Right now it's got winds of at least 160 miles an hour. That's what the officials have gone with. We believe it's higher. 165 miles an hour we went with at the last update 3 hours before this update, and the latest satellite estimates from Force 13 have it at around 169 miles per hour, so it could be on its way to 175 by the next update, and the expected peak from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center is 180, so that is a remarkable prediction from them, and it could go on to affect the Japanese islands as a significant typhoon. Invest 96W still holding on. Convection is affecting the Philippine Islands now, but a very low chance of formation. 10% may even be generous. So that's everything. Nothing in the southern hemisphere. Now let's take a look at some of the satellite views. The Eastern Pacific. You can see how it's looking here. Both those 2 hurricanes. Miriam's certainly not looking very impressive as far as hurricanes go. Norman showing her how it's done, and you can see quite clearly the eye. We'll have some better views of that shortly. The Atlantic, you can see quite nicely the system. There's sort of 2 convective areas really, either side of Puerto Rico right now, and that will hopefully maybe combine, or who knows where it will end up as it moves towards the northwest and perhaps gradually develop. But at the minute, not much going on with that apart from very heavy rainfall locally, which could be causing some flooding, flash flooding issues. To the east, on the very far right of that left image, you can see that potential tropical cyclone is likely to be our next named storm, and it's in between the African coastline of the mainland and the Cabo Verde Islands, which it will go on to affect as a significant system regardless of whether it's a tropical storm or not. It is going to be at least a rainmaker. The West Pacific, first of all, you can see what's left of 96W, not looking very good down there near the Philippines, but could be another rainmaker down there. And then you've got, obviously, it's quite difficult to miss, Typhoon Jebi, which is a Category 5. Although I must say, as far as these typhoons go, it's not excessively large. There are much larger ones out there than this, but suffice to say it is a very powerful system. You wouldn't want to be in its way. Stage 8 on the CDPS scale. There's the Australian region, if anyone was wondering about that. Nothing going on there at this time, although some Himawari glitch earlier sort of put Jebi down there near Australia, which obviously was not true. Here's some floaters. You can see more clearly now how the storms are looking. Jebi's eye is remarkable, and Norman isn't looking too bad either. On the right hand side you can see Miriam and Norman on GOES 17, the newest of the satellites, at least from America, and you can see just how good it is in those images there. Jebi's still not looking too bad on the Himawari 8 either. You can also check out our social platforms for some better images of some of these storms as they get produced too, so I would suggest checking that out. Here's sea surface temperatures right now, pretty much the same as what we were talking about yesterday, not much of a change. In case you're worried about the Gulf, it is warm over there, 28 to 30 degrees Celsius, ahead of PTC 6. Temperatures will be dropping a little bit if it curves towards the northwest a little bit, like we're expecting in the forecast. The further south it remains, the stronger it will likely become. But let me remind you, it's not going to be an Irma. I know the time of year is the same as last time, but any professional would tell you that this is a much different situation, and this Storm 6L is most likely to recurve completely and is probably going to be a bigger threat to the Azores than anywhere in the west. So this is what the GFS is pointing out in the next few days. The Atlantic, first of all, it's quite obvious. You can see the new storm forming there on the eastern side of the Atlantic, and then where does it go? It starts moving towards the west-northwest, watching the western area as well where that other system could develop. You can just see it entering the Gulf there, I believe, early next week, but really nothing coming of that. As for 6L, you can see it becoming a hurricane. Nothing beyond a minimal hurricane according to the GFS, but I don't think actually any of the models are saying it will be any stronger than Category 1 at the minute. Now, here's a look at the Eastern Pacific. You can see Norman, you can see Miriam really not having a good time moving north there. Norman having a decent time, weakening a little bit though there. Although quite curiously the GFS showing little sign of that invest, or is it developing there now? It looks actually that it is, and there is possibly our next tropical storm, and two systems colliding apparently. Who knows whether that has any truth in it or not. And this is Jebi quite clearly moving towards the northwest away from the Mariana Islands, and this is probably one to watch, definitely one to watch in Japan, because more likely than not this storm is going to make landfall somewhere along the Japanese coastline. It's not going to be a Cimarron, it's going to be slower, it's going to be larger, and it's not going to self-destruct as quickly as Cimarron did if it does impact the Japanese islands. So it's going to be another one to watch very closely indeed, and it may be the biggest one of the year so far. Fingers crossed, here's hoping it won't be. And this is the North Indian Ocean. You can see very little going on here, the only basin of the Northern Hemisphere that's not going to have any activity over the next 5 days. Yep, it's pretty quiet. Well, let's return us back to the page, and the computer models is the final one that I want to show you tonight. Another look at these systems here, the HWRF's take on them. You can see Jebi on the left hand side, really not intensifying it from its early point. It's not picked up on its intensity, so maybe you could suggest that a Category 3 landfall in Japan can't be ruled out based on that, but really who knows. Our guess at the minute, it's going to be maybe a strong Category 2 landfall, but that is very skeptical, I suppose you could say. But what the word I was looking for was, I'm not sure actually, it was in doubt. And Norman on the right hand side definitely thinks, the HWRF, that it will become a Category 5. Speculative was the word I was looking for. And in these looks here, you can see the left hand side again, Miriam, according to the RAL guidance. They're all very similar, these guidance graphics. It's just the display looks different on them, and you can see 6L on the right hand side. Good confidence on that one towards the northwest. Miriam a little bit less confidence, but I wouldn't be worried if you're on the Hawaiian Islands. And finally, another look here at the panels on 6L. You can see a good spread there for the models, anywhere from mid to high-end tropical storm to strong category 1 is what they're saying intensity-wise. Wind shear is going to drop, but so are the sea surface temperatures, and for a little while it may end up having less than 26 degrees Celsius, so that's not ideal for the storm at all. And generally, relative humidity is going to start to take a bit of a nosedive too. Probably Saharan air might get in its way a little bit, and I do wonder whether the models have picked up on that well enough, considering how bad an issue that has been in recent times. Well, that's all for tonight for this Tropical Weather Bulletin. Now to Force 13's outlets. You can follow Force 13's outlets, the website force13.com, with you at any time. You can also find our YouTube page if you're not there already, subscribed hopefully. And you can also follow our Facebook page, search Force 13 all in text. Videos are now there as well. And you can follow us on Twitter, at Force 13 is our handle. And it's hashtag F13Sulik if you'd like to draw our attention to anything in future live events or whatnot. You can also help the project become even better by becoming a patron with its various rewards that come with that feature as well. And you can add me personally, Fool13 at extension 9094 on Discord, and Force13 on Skype for tropical weather chat.